So did your daughter go, so this is pre-recorded, right? I mean, this is like not live, right?
No, we're recording.
Okay.
No, you can ask. It's fine. What I do
No, I was
is
just going to ask if your daughter went trick-or-treating last night.
Oh, yeah, we went trick-or-treating.
Fun.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, she's... how can I explain this? So, I think she's got the same kind of personality that I have. I mean, she definitely shares in both Betsy and mine, but... yeah, I get social anxiety. Like, I don't really like being around like a whole lot of people.
Sure.
And I get that sense with her. So when it comes to trick-or-treating, like, let's just use that as like a sample. As soon as we go, it's always a block and a half or so, and she's like, I'm good. Let's go ahead and get
it. Yeah.
You know. The fall festival thing up at Bridges, she does piano there.
Okay.
So she had a brief little piano recital. And she had fun. There was friends there, but you could tell right away it was like, it's going to have to come closer to me a little bit. And then, yeah. But, which I appreciate, because I'm like, all right, if you want to go, let's go. It's like the daddy-daughter dance. Every single year since it started, we literally go out to dinner, get to the dance, get our picture. It's a few laps with her girlfriends, and she's like, we can roll. We can get out of here.
Which is probably great for you,
me,
right?
It's like I can get a great picture with her in my suit, and we're done.
Yeah.
We are done. But, yeah.
Well, and, you know, I don't know if you get that quite a bit, but you're pretty extroverted, right? Or at least it seems so on the outside.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people, if you tell them that you have, like, sort of some social anxiety, that they get surprised by that.
I think they do. Most people do.
Yeah.
My friends know.
Yeah.
That we're like, hey, we can't go there with Jim.
Sure, yeah. No, that one's off limits.
Yeah. Or, like, I'm one of those people that's totally like, I'll definitely go. Like, I have a birthday party to go to tomorrow night. And a week ago, I was already telling Betsy, oh, God, I can't believe I said I was going to go to that.
Yeah.
But I got to go. So I'll go for a minute.
It's one of those pre-commitment things. You're like, at the time, it sounds great.
It sounds
and
so
then
great.
As it gets closer to
a couple beers in, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll definitely do that. And I'm like, oh,
Sure.
I can't.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I have a friend who like, we'll make plans to go, and then she'll be like, I think I'm going to stay home. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, we're just like that, though, because we're very schedule oriented. Even though we don't put it down, our schedule is basically the same every single day. Dinner's at a specific time, and then like 2 hours later, we're in the wrapper reading books and going to bed.
Yeah, it's structured.
Yeah. So I don't know, but we have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know, Mary that's my 8-year-old. She's a special one. So we have a lot of fun with her, and that's been great since selling the store. Is like, I had a summer this summer that I haven't had in, I couldn't tell you how long. Probably since I was a kid. I mean, we were out hiking and biking and just hanging out.
Fun. Yeah.
It's a ton of fun. And Betsy only works like 3 days a week, so
Okay, nice.
it's been super rad.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Except for the last couple of weeks, she's been painting. So I'm like, I got a podcast to do. I can't.
Right. Well,
we painted the living room together. And when she was like, I'll paint the bedrooms by myself, you know, I'm just like, all this paint, it was running, I wasn't doing a good job, and she's really good at doing the meticulous, we'll get it handled. So she did our bedroom yesterday, and she's in my son's room today.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's a fun project for her, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, like this morning, I said, you sure you don't want my help? She's like, I got it, it'll be fine. But just let me handle it. Get it done, and then it's done. Yeah. So it's like, we're going to do this this clean out challenge. We did it, we're really trying to simplify. Yeah. And, I want to say it was in maybe June. We almost did a full month, but then the busyness of summer got a hold of us. But what it is like, you take one item a day and then double it. So like, if I don't think I need this, I donate it, throw it away, whatever, get rid of it. And then the next day you do 2 items, and then 3 items.
Nice.
And then by the end of the month, combined, I think we were at like almost 700 items.
Yeah, wow. Wow,
we
that's
didn't
a
get to
cool
the end
way
of the
to do
month.
it.
We did about 3 weeks, and then it was like, boy, today I've got to do like 21 items. So by the time you get to that point, you're like, man, there's really not a whole lot I want to get, let go of.
Yeah.
But I can really get behind that. I'm a minimalist. Okay, it doesn't look like it in here because all that race shit over there, but.
Well, you need it. You use it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's got to get reorganized, but we'll get there. We're just kind of coming down from the racing season. It's just like we just finished our last race in October, at the beginning of October. So now we're trying to reformulate for next year, but that's boring stuff.
Well, and what is that? So you organize running events, right?
So we have 2 major events that my business partners in that, Dylan and Zach, we put on the Run the Pier Summer Running Festival, which had started off with just a 5K, and then last year we added a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon. It was massive.
Yeah.
I mean, it was double the last 2 years combined in participation. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Huge event. And then the other event we do is a gravel bike race, the Rusty Fish. Okay. And that started off with a 100-mile race that went from Manistee National to Ironfish Distillery and back. And then we've kind of been evolving the race. It's the gravel cycling race circuit is a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
To get people to participate in your event, because there are some really wonderful races almost every weekend. And big races. Okay. So we've been kind of retooling the side. Like last year, we did a 120-mile race on top of like a 66-mile, a 33-mile. And then we also had a century, the 100-mile as well. So it was a lot.
Yeah.
This year, we just stripped it right down to 2 events. Well, actually 3, because we added a marathon, because it just kind of fit the route. And so it was a 33-mile or 36-mile race and a 66-mile race, gravel, and then a marathon run.
Okay.
It was phenomenal. We couldn't have asked for a better weather.
Oh,
we do everything at the VFW now, and they made lunch for everybody.
Oh, great.
We gave everybody who participated a free lunch ticket, so everybody hung out afterwards. It was great, and we were done by 3 o'clock. It was the most efficient race we've done to date.
Nice.
Everybody finished. Everything was put away. Everything was packed up. We put everything back down here the next day. I put it all away, and then it's like, now we got to get ready for next year.
Yeah.
But that's what I wanted to lean into
Yeah.
after selling the store, was being more present at home, focusing on the podcast and the racing, and
Yeah.
and I've got a super amazing wife, business partner, go down the
Yeah.
list, home CPA, you know,
Right.
who supports all this, which is phenomenal, because I
Great.
couldn't do it without her. That's for
good.
sure. I couldn't have done that store without her. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, I found my perfect match.
Oh, good.
Yeah, for sure.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, she might not say that. But I'm just
Well, and you know, when you feel it, you know it. So
yeah, yeah.
Great.
It's a yin and yang when it comes to business a little bit, you know, which is a good thing, because I'm more of a I see all of the positive and don't look at any of the negative when
Okay.
it comes to like business stuff. And
Yeah.
she's like, hey, listen, we really need to talk about like all of this, because this could happen.
yeah, the cautious
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
the cautious, the financial part, the time, and all that. And I'm just like, well, it would be really great once we do all of this, you know. And she reels it in. So,
Sure.
and I think that's what makes
she's the
good
grounding
partnership.
point, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because then she'll see me when I'm thinking, and you know, the tip. What are you thinking about? Like, we're not gonna get into
You
it.
have the dream, and she like has the
She
practical
puts it all.
part.
She puts all the nuts and bolts
Yeah,
together. I just say
yeah.
this is going to be rad. We should do it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, no.
Well, it's the creative part, and that's
Yeah.
what it sounds like is your strong suit. So
Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, maybe I need. Because I've got plans for all kinds of things, but she definitely gets me back down on the ground so that I can be like, yeah, you're right. It's probably best that I just continue to do this for a little while.
sure.
So, well, let's jump into it, Jen.
Okay.
I have your website. I always forget my password. There it is. Pulled up. JS Counseling Services. like I said, this is more of a conversation, but I just had some starting things to kind of get this rolling a little bit. Can you just talk about, maybe like an elevator pitch or like what exactly you do, and then we can just kind of dovetail off of that.
Sure. Well, I'm Jennifer Sielski. I have a master's degree in counselor education, and so I'm in private practice, and I've been doing that for about 8 years now, a little over 8 years. Got my master's degree from Western Michigan. Right now my specialty is stress and anxiety. I have quite a bit of experience with trauma, grief, and depression as well. But just trying to sort of hone in on the stress and anxiety right now.
Now, you said you've been doing this for about 8 years. Is this something that you just turned into, or is there a reason for?
Well,
I mean, I say that because, like I asked you earlier before we started, if anything was off limits, and it just, if there was some reason behind it, like with Paul passing away, if that was something that moved you into this direction.
Well, I think it's something that I've always wanted to do. I started out working in community mental health, and that was a nice start, good training and great experience. The reason why I switched is I actually lost my job. So Paul had passed in 2013, and then 2014 I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I was getting treated for that for about a year. And so part of that is I had to go on long-term disability for just a couple of months. And if my position, so when you do that, you lose your position, basically. Sure. And so within the agency. And I could reapply if it was available, and it was. I did reapply, and I did not get hired back. So that was that was a letdown, but also I looked at it as an opportunity. I think they were kind of surprised that I didn't apply for anything else in the agency, but all that was available were level entry positions, and so I thought, you're not going to get me, for sure. less pay, when I do the same amount of work. So I just, in good faith, couldn't work there anymore, and so I decided to take the risk, and I think 8 years later it's paid off. So it was good. It sort of kicked me into moving in that direction, and maybe it was kind of the push that I needed. So at first I was angry about it, but I developed gratitude for it. So
like when somebody reaches out to you, what is the process? What is your, obviously when I shouldn't say obviously, like when somebody reaches out because they're looking for counseling services on a particular thing, whether it's anxiety or grief, because you specialize in grief, stress, life transitions, anxiety, depression, self-esteem, coping skills. You do couples counseling. It's got to be uncomfortable, I think, for the people that call in or schedule an appointment to initially talk to you about some of these things that are going on with them. What is your approach to making them feel comfortable, and then where do you go from there in terms of like how do you help them go through this period? So it's kind of a mixed bag when people call, and sometimes they're ready to just kind of let it all out, and sometimes there is some hesitation or trepidation about it. So I mean, from the moment I answer the phone, I'm developing a relationship. So I try to just kind of, ease into it and try to make them as comfortable as possible. And if they have any questions, I'm open to answering whatever it is that they, want to know. So we might take a little bit of time with that, and maybe it's like 10 to 20 minutes, and
And sometimes I do have the option on my website that they can just request an appointment right away without an initial phone call. And sometimes I'll make the phone call afterwards, but we can do everything electronically. They send information my way to let me know what it is that they want to be seen for, and then we kind of move the process along to that first appointment. So the first appointment, I don't typically do an assessment unless somebody asks for it. I try to move away from sort of diagnosis and pathology. So, if they want to bill insurance, if they want to kind of get reimbursed through insurance and submit their claims to insurance, then, we'll do an assessment at that time. But a lot of times what I find is people just want to come in and tell their story. And so I want the flexibility for them to be able to do so. And then we just kind of navigate from there in what they feel comfortable with.
So it's not like come lay on the couch.
No.
I'm sure you get that a lot. But
and in fact, I got rid of my couch. I used to have one.
Yeah.
but no, it's again, it's just kind of all comes to that relationship building. And so, I'm a stranger to them.
Sure.
And if they don't feel comfortable sharing, some intimate things with me, it's I want them to be able to feel comfortable to do that.
So when you're looking at stuff like anxiety and grief and depression, how does it, other than just having a conversation, because I do agree that a lot of people sometimes just need to get shit off their chest. Mm-hmm. And to some degree that might be enough for some people.
Sure.
But what are the steps going forward if they just can't release, mm-hmm. if they can't let go?
Yeah.
Because I think, these are, a lot of people have trauma. Mm-hmm. They go through a fair amount of stress in their life and some people don't. Some people are really fortunate. They, I know people that have never lost a loved one, that their parents are still alive and or they get to an age where, they're already okay if mom or dad passes away because they're well into their 80s or whatever, and maybe there's some decline and they know it's coming soon, and they can go through that journey with them, and it's more peaceful, and I don't want to say easy, but it's not as stressful as like a right now situation. Yeah. How, when you're having a session or multiple sessions with somebody that are going through something like this, I mean, what's the process to try to help them come out of that and move on? Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes we can do icebreakers and just, some practical things like that. I mean, sometimes it depends on the age. We might play a game or we might do mindfulness exercises. And I find that can be just kind of interesting because it's like you're teaching a mindfulness tool, but at the same time, some of the mindfulness exercises are fun. Yeah. So we might take that approach. It just depends. You're kind of reading it a little bit, and I will kind of ask them what they want. If they are open to letting me know, then we'll kind of direct it from there. But yeah.
What's the mindfulness exercises? What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Like,
so
what are those?
Well, and I don't know, how familiar you are with mindfulness or the term.
I'm really, I think I have a pretty good idea. Mm-hmm. I do a little bit of meditation, stuff like that, breath work. The older I get, the more Zen I think I am becoming. Yeah. I do a myriad of things to keep my mental stability. Yeah. I'm not one for doctoring, hardly at all. Mm-hmm. I'm 46, so I get my annual physical. That's about it. Yeah. But I do not miss a day of physical activity. I do a lot of, like I said, meditation, breath work, stuff like that. I have a cold plunge at home, so people are going to be like, oh, this guy's crazy. But I enjoy that a lot. Yeah. The next step is to get a sauna. Okay. And Bets and I are on board with that. So we're either going to build one or we're going to buy one soon. Yeah. So, But that's what, and I think Betsy would mirror that. I mean, she's very much in that lane too. I mean, we are very mindful of everything that we consume, that what we put in our bodies, what we watch on our computer or phone. And you can get sucked into some wild shit. But
Sure. But you're intentional with it.
We try to be intentional. I try to be intentional. So I guess that's my idea of what mindfulness is. You know, try to be a good person. You know, that's a big one for me. You know, sometimes in my mind I'm like, oof, but I'm gonna lean the other way. You know. Yeah. So
it's all learning, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the mindfulness, I mean, it just, you know, as you described, and some of the activities might be like you described, kind of like a mindfulness meditation, which is one form of learning mindfulness. Another thing is we can just kind of do activities that sort of help practice it. So, I mean, for example, like, well, I don't know if you're familiar, you know, kind of with the 5 senses, right? You can kind of look in the room, like what are 5 things you see? What are 4 things you know, can touch? What are 3 things you can hear? And then kind of work your way down. So something like that, it just helps you be focused and present in the moment.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
that is really interesting. How do you deal with coming out of a session? I mean, I would assume that you are listening to some of the hardest moments in somebody's life.
Sure.
And obviously you're trying to help them, but then when it's over with and you're at home at night, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's some reflection.
Yeah, I have to do my own self-care, and I think if I don't, then I'm not good for myself, and I'm not good for anybody I work with. So I do my own mindfulness, I do my own breath work as well. Some creativity things I do after work as well, and make sure that I get fun. That's one that is one that I really have to be intentional with, is creating fun, because I can do tasks and I can do activities around the house and do chores and things like that, like busy work that I think we all kind of get maybe bombarded with each day. But I have to be intentional about creating fun and making fun for myself.
Yeah, when you said busy work, I mean, I find myself creating work when I should be focusing on something else. Okay. You know, I'm one of those guys that's like, I should clean this room before I start doing my computer work. You know, I should organize my dresser before that's why I can't work from home.
Yeah.
That's why I have this place, because if I did anything at home, I'd never get anything done.
Yeah. And we would call that shooting on yourself.
Shitting on yourself?
Shooting on yourself.
I should, yeah.
Yeah, because I should do this, I should do that, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
What's the one reoccurring what's the one reoccurring theme that you see with a lot of your clients? Is it more anxiety? And I ask that because I'm wondering if there was an uptick after COVID or during COVID. Yeah. And then I wonder how much of it you can see from that, how much of it you can see from over consuming, like social media, news, you know, those years during COVID, and that coupled with the social angst and everything that went on with the rioting or protesting or whatever. Obviously, the election cycle is something that probably has given at least half the population, or I would say 100%, depending on what side you're on. I don't think it matters. A bit of anxiety. I mean, Betsy and I are like turning it all off as much as we can. She's deleted all social media from her phone. The only reason why I have it, honestly, is because of this. I do a lot of posting and leaving. I don't read comments or nothing like that. So I'm trying to be mindful about the consumption, although I can do this a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
Once I get in it, if I post something, I'm like, I'll just check it out for a little bit. And then I'm just like, seems like one train wreck after another.
Yeah.
And especially with kids. So to kind of bookend this, COVID, was there a rise? Do you see more of it because of COVID and because of, like, say, too much all at once. And then with kids, during COVID, they were put in front of a computer or an iPad. And there was Mike's son, for example, didn't even go to school basically his senior year. And then, everything was virtual.
Yeah.
And it went virtual for a long time. And we saw some, with a lot of young people that it's just, and we're also seeing that there's some isolation. College, for example, now, like my son goes to Ferris, and 90% of his classes are virtual. Mm-hmm. I'm like, why don't you just come home?
Yeah.
You got one class that you have to be at a week. You can just drive there. It's only an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's kind of where I'm at is like, what are you seeing more anxiety because of all that? Has there been an uptick?
Well, yeah, it's hard to say if it's, specifically related because I think we don't recognize that. We think, oh, we went through a pandemic, it's over, now move on. So I don't think that people connect that a lot, that it was a collective trauma for us. And so, but there's so much of an energy out there anyway, an anxious energy. Kids who were in school during the pandemic, it's almost like, well, now, they have to understand or have to try to figure out what life is like now when you go to school, and then, you have school shootings. That is a real anxiety-provoking topic. And
immensely.
Yes, yeah.
When they're talking about it at school, and listen, I get it. It was like when I grew up, we had to get underneath the desk in case there was a bomb or something, but that can be traumatic.
Yeah.
To be like, we have to go through these mock lockdowns because there might be a school shooter, and it's scary for me as a parent.
Yeah.
Like that, my kids got to go through that at school because it could be something that could happen.
Right.
It's wild to me.
Right. Yeah, it's such a change from how we grew up, and to think that this is something that you go through every day, and at some point you might get used to that, but if there's a threat or something, then it's like, oh, now our stress levels are going up. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think me being a Gen Xer, I definitely take a more hardened approach to life. Mm-hmm. Like there's I got like a rock facade around me.
Yeah.
When you think, because I was just having this conversation a couple of weeks ago about, growing up in the 70s and 80s. It seems so much, I feel like such an old man when I say it, but like back in my day, it was real chill.
I know.
We drank out of the hose. My parents didn't know where I was for 8-10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was just gone, doing whatever. And now, people are like, how many sex offenders are in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, everything's so accessible. So I feel like everybody's got it's like they're microdosed with anxiety all day.
Well, it's almost like a hypervigilance, right? So you're just almost, kind of walking, like waiting for that next thing to go. And I think like with our generation, we might have like lost a little bit of emotional support.
Yeah.
But I think we also created like some resiliency.
Yeah.
So we've learned how to navigate through difficult times. Maybe not easily, but we did, and I think that also is something that's a struggle with the younger generations. Is sometimes we go overboard with the emotional support, right?
Sure.
Where we're trying to prevent them from feeling anything, and it's out of love, right? But what we've done now is we've prevented so much that when they're in that situation, it's hard for them to navigate through it. So I think we have that challenge as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And we try to do like speaking just from us as parents, trying to, I think the kids have to do you have to allow them to do hard shit, and you have to allow them to maybe have a certain amount of danger in their days that they can overcome.
Yeah.
It's a weird way to say it, with danger, but like I look at when I was raising my older two, it was definitely more of a coddled situation. And with Mary, our youngest, we are she's so feral. I mean, just go out and play. You know, I mean, we obviously watch her, but she's super independent. She's basically, you know, I mean, like you said, she's got her older brother and sister, but she's kind of an only child in a sense because they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, Trent, my oldest, is off to college, and my daughter Helena has graduated, and she's working, and, you know, we basically see her 48 hours a week, maybe. And so Mary's kind of left to her own devices, and she does a lot of things out at her grandparents' farm, which is very independent to her. So, you know, when I look at the way she's being raised, it reminds me of when I was a kid, where I could just be free to develop and make good, bad, or poor decisions, and then deal with it. You know, and I think that's really going to help her. But she spends so much time by herself, essentially. I mean, she's got some younger cousins that she runs with, but so she's developing that social anxiety we were talking about in the beginning. I know she is. I could just sense it around her. Like when we have something big coming up, we try not to over talk about it because she'll be excited to do the thing, and then once the thing comes, it's like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Scary,
you know?
yeah.
So, and I don't think it's that she's scared. She just knows it's going to be a lot. Kind of thing. But I don't know. Do you think that there are people that definitely should be in some type of therapy and people that can handle it themselves? And I ask that because I tend to just handle everything myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'm a big proponent of
Sure, I
counseling,
mean, I get it.
so yeah, but you know, some people have the supports and they have the skills and they're doing everything that helps manage, you know, whatever stress they might be going through. I think it's, I mean, I think it'd be great if everybody did it, you know, just because it's about personal growth. And so I think that, you know, we evolve, and it's a good tool to use to be able to just learn more about yourself. I mean, I go to therapy myself, and I love it, you know, and I've been going for many years. I have a great relationship with my therapist, and so it's just something I enjoy personally, and you know, I guess it's to each individual really, and what they would gain from it, and maybe what they wouldn't. But yeah, I think it'd be great for anybody.
Yeah, like I was saying before we started filming, a lot of the stuff that I consume, you know, that there's advertisements for. Kind of like a telehealth situation where you could call and talk to a counselor and, you know, build a relationship that way. And it's very promoted now, more so than I think. I mean, like, just to get you on the podcast, I'm like, well, I'm seeing this stuff a lot. You know, it's becoming more of a thing people are more comfortable talking about than they have in the past. I think there was a little bit of a stigma, like, I'm going to a therapist or whatever.
Sure.
So, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong with you? Why are you talking to a therapist?
Right.
You know? So, I don't know. I mean, you know, one of the things that was top of mind for me to bring you on is that, you know, I think that there is a number of, I mean, little things that people can get triggered by that they probably should talk to somebody about, and they don't. I mean, what would you say to somebody who if you knew that they probably needed to talk to somebody, whether that's you or another therapist, like how would you say, hey, listen, maybe you need to get something off your chest?
Yeah. It depends on the relationship, you know, that I have with that person, or, you know, I don't really find strangers off the street going, hey, you know, you could use this.
You know, I understand.
Sure.
It's just more of a, just kind of a thought topic, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I say this because I've never been one that's just open about, you know, things that I've gone through in my life. But I feel like I do a really good job of, you know, I don't know what the right term is. I don't want to be like, pushing it down or getting away with it. You know, like I recognize things, and I'm like,
You have an
okay, well,
awareness.
there's something that I recognize that I probably should maybe think about a little bit deeper, and then then I go to the gym for 2 hours and I'm good.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I don't know. I want to be encouraging about this. That's why I brought you on, is I think there are people out there that need to talk to somebody. You know, so how do you encourage that?
Yeah. You know, I try to have people kind of come to their own awareness with things. I mean, if they're coming to me for, you know, if I have a friend or something that's coming to me and looking for some support, you know, and if it goes sort of beyond the friendship, I might recommend that, or just say, you know, it might be nice to talk to somebody. And I think I'm probably in an environment where that is something that's talked openly about, so it's hard for me to kind of distinguish, like,
Sure.
you know, when to recommend to somebody. But I think, and I'm going to probably sidestep a little bit here, I think, you know, when you've talked about that stigma, that we do have a little bit of like the way our culture kind of views therapy or counseling. And we sort of look at it as like, you don't come until you have a problem. And I think that's been sort of insurance driven, because with insurance, you have to have a medical diagnosis. So basically it's saying that something has to be wrong for you to get treatment, they might call it, you know, which is psychotherapy. And so I think that's still kind of there. Like, I don't go unless there's something wrong, or unless there's something really wrong. And that's why I don't work with insurance anymore, is because we don't, you know, now I can work on a sort of preventative level. So if like somebody's experiencing something stressful for a longer, you know, a long period of time, or even if they were just like, hey, I could, you know, get some skills, or I could, you know, maybe benefit from this, or see if it might help, and give a call, then, you know, I can work on that level. So I don't have to say, you know, well, you have to be this severe for you to come to counseling.
So you don't prescribe?
No.
What do you think about SSRIs?
You know, it benefits some people, and so, you know, I certainly, I'm not anti-medication if people need it, but I certainly think that the two go hand in hand. So I think certainly with counseling, if they are on medication, I don't think medication is a sort of a one-all be-all. Like, I think it has to work jointly with counseling or therapy.
Yeah, I mean, some of those drugs are like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
they could put you, they really change your wirings,
sure,
I guess.
Sure.
You know, years ago, I was dealing with a little bit of depression, and I didn't know what to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's going on? So I just go to my doctor, and I'm like, hey, I'm feeling a little funky, dude. And here's a prescription. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was an SSRI. And I remember taking it and being like no emotion.
Right.
It was weird.
And
I wasn't me at all. And I'm like, I got to figure something else out.
Yeah.
It was literally the last time I took a pharmaceutical.
Okay.
Like, at all. And I had like, I said this so many times on the podcast, but anyways, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis like 8 years ago. And the doctor was like, the specialist was like, well, we're going to put you on this pill. It's going to help with, you know, your pain, but you have to come in every 3-4 months to get your liver checked and your kidneys checked. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So I figured it out on my own. You know, I do that a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I think, this is really a hard talk for me. I'm trying to find the words. Like, I don't think I can do this pretty well, but I don't think I could sit down and just spill my guts to somebody. You know, do you find that a lot? That it's really like hard to get to the root of your patient's problems, issues, I guess?
Yeah, it can be, I think, for them if the defenses are up, and part of that is like a fear, right? And it might not be a conscious fear, but it can be a fear of feeling something or a fear of going there, because the body's the nervous system is like trying to protect itself, right? It's saying, no, we're not going there. That's scary. Like that, if you touch into that emotion, we don't know what's going to happen. And so it can be pretty strong coming in there to be guarded. And yeah, but I'm patient with people. I kind of work on a client-centered practice. So basically, I let the client lead. I don't try to push the client into something. I might challenge sometimes, and just sort of like, oh well, maybe there's a different way we might be able to look at this, or maybe there's just kind of a way we might be able to change a thought about this, but ultimately they determine how they want sessions to look. And I know that might sound a little,
I get it.
Oh, yeah, it might sound a little strange because they might be coming to me to like, hey, show me or tell me what to do. And we can have a more direct approach if that's what they need. But it's really kind of, okay, what is it that they need, and we'll take it from there.
I get the sense that a lot of your patients,
Mm-hmm.
Probably after a few sessions are eager to come back.
Yeah.
You seem really, there's like a light about you that's like easy to talk to.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I would assume that a lot of them come in and they're like, oh, I've been waiting,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Right.
I got more shit to tell you.
Right,
Are you ready?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's about the third or fourth session where people are, like, okay, ready to go forward or determined that maybe it's not for them. So, it's sometimes it's the timing, right? Sometimes it's okay, I thought I was ready and maybe I'm not quite yet. And then, maybe return later, which is fine as well. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how you do it. Taking all that in.
Mm-hmm.
Betsy always says, like, I'm like an empath, whatever I get all the feels, from people. Yeah. So I'm pretty good at, like, there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. There's something bothering this person, I tend to absorb that vibration.
Yeah.
If people around me are a little low, then I'm right down to their level. If they're high, I'm high. And in thinking about like having people come in all the time, that would just give me anxiety.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To have those kind of conversations. So it's really, you're doing good work.
Thanks.
I feel like you're doing good work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never sat down and talked to anybody like that. So, but I definitely feel the positive vibes, and I have some friends that are in counseling, and they rave about it. It's changed their life, and I think that's wonderful. One of the things that Betsy wanted me to ask you is about the life coaching. Mm-hmm. She said, I was on her website too, 'cause I said, well, is there anything you want me to ask her? And she said life coaching. She's interested to know what's that as part of your specialties, what that entails.
Yeah, I've brought life coaching in every now and again, so just kind of dependent on maybe the need or desire. So it's working with people who maybe have no symptoms or maybe mild symptoms of like stress or anxiety, for instance. So a lot of it has to deal with goals, and so when somebody comes in for life coaching, they kind of have a direction of what they want for goals. A little bit. They might not know specifically the goal that they want, but if it's something, work related, like, I'd like to have more job satisfaction, or I'd like to be happier, and this is what it looks like. So they have sort of a clear path to the goal that they want to achieve. And with counseling, so some of the difference in the goals, it could be like if somebody is having more severe symptoms, goals can feel overwhelming. So it's kind of like, well, if I'm having difficulty getting through each day, looking to that far into the future, even a couple months into the future, I don't know what that looks like. I want symptoms to be gone,
right?
But I don't know what it looks like without symptoms. And so it might be a little bit more challenging to kind of look that far ahead. It's sort of like, well, I want to be without symptoms, but I don't know what that looks like. So sometimes it's that. There is a lot of overlap with counseling and coaching, and so I've heard the term used before as micro-counseling. And so with counseling, there is at least a master's degree for that, so there's more in-depth training.
Sure.
And then as a coach, sometimes they have certifications, but there really isn't anything that is a requirement or...
No, because I'll be online
Yeah.
and I'll see some 27-year-old telling everybody who's watching that I can coach you and train you to be a better person or whatever. And it's like, well, you don't have any life experience.
Sure.
That's the big thing for me, is like, if you're going to help somebody create a better future, you got to have a past that shows me that you've done it, that you've done something besides just develop your frontal lobe.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
That shit drives me nuts. There's a self-help book from somebody who's not even 30 yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I read a lot of like philosophy, I'm really into like meditations, Marcus Aurelius. I've read that a gang of times. I love that book. I take something that was created so long ago that still translates today. I lean into stuff like that if I'm curious about my next move, my next step, the things that I'm feeling that, every human has felt, and they're go thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
And I try to look at like what's really tragic for me is not as tragic as somebody else. I mean, because I think we've all got our own, like, I said at the beginning of the podcast that I know people that haven't experienced, like a loved one passing away or anything like that, but they've probably experienced other things that were like, so I'm trying not to be overly masculine about this kind of thing, like I've got like, but I've definitely got like an ape brain for starters. I'm kind of a gorilla, but like in my past experiences, I mean, I joined the military is pretty much 6 months after I got out of high school. College just wasn't for me, and then it was like, I've seen the worst at a really young age, and kind of moved through all of that. Had some difficult periods, and then there was just like a synapse switch at some point. And sometimes I think, boy, if this person could just find that thing that just flipped the switch, and maybe that's counseling. I don't know. For me, it was just like I just dove into like running and cycling and doing long races and stuff like that, building up to it. And finding a partner like Betsy, who's just absolutely amazing, has been, if everybody could have a partner in life like I have, then this world would be a better place.
Yeah.
But for like a guy like me, I mean, obviously this is what you do for a living, but I mean, from an honest, I've seen some wild shit. And I think I do a really good job of, just kind of, I really feel like humans can forget really fast. I do think humans can forget. Maybe not 100%, but, and forgetting's a bad word, but I really think humans can just kind of, like when you have a loved one pass away, like a grandparent or like an aged parent or something like that, there's a lot of, I can't believe this has happened, blah, 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 or, and you have a funeral, which in some respects, depending on the level of how the person passed away, it can lift you up. And then in a few months, you're just kind of all of a sudden, you go from thinking about that person every day to maybe once a week to once a month. And then it's every now and then you get that little, I do, every now and then you're like, oh, yeah, wow. And then I move on from it.
Yeah.
But I know some people can't. I guess that's where counseling comes into play.
Sure, yeah. Well, and if it's something traumatic, if it's been a traumatic death, then that adds a lot of layers to it. And so we're not just talking grief then at that point. And grief is something that we all experience, right? And to different levels and different degrees. But if it's something traumatic, then it's like, then the body sort of does have a memory, and it'll let you know that, oh, we're experiencing this. And it's almost like for something traumatic, it can feel like you're experiencing it all over again. And so it doesn't go away, right? It doesn't go away after the grief period. It's now it's layered, now it's complex, and so and that can go on for years.
So the layers, grief, like there's anger.
Mm-hmm.
Is there you said years, and I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there kind of like a bell curve, like an arc that you're like, when you're in counseling with someone and you say, okay, we're getting close to to where it kind of tapers off.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit better.
Yeah. I mean, I think even from the first session, sometimes people can feel like, like they can feel better. And then it just depends. So I don't have like a structured thing. It's just kind of like I allow that to be up to the person I'm seeing, is that they can kind of determine. And we can do that together within the relationship to see where they want to be. It's really all dependent on where they want to go with it. If they're like, hey, I just want to, just let's talk about grief, for instance, talk about some grief, and then I can move forward. But sometimes people will find, wait, there might be another goal within here too. I wouldn't mind working on this. And so the length of time can determine just based on each individual.
And to me, that's wild too. Like how people can go through virtually the same thing, and it's completely different mentally for everyone.
Right.
I mean, there's some similarities, but I mean, there can be like a very big difference between one versus the other.
Yeah.
Which is,
Yeah, and that can be, made up just from, depending on the belief system you have about it, or the thoughts you have about it, or sometimes, a bit of a genetic makeup. So, yeah, there's a lot of pieces that will kind of determine, how you cope with it.
Is spirituality ever involved in it?
Yeah, quite a bit.
So is that more structured to the person, like if they're like a devout Catholic versus somebody who's just really spiritual?
Yes, yeah. So that is what each individual believes.
So is there like you got to pretty much talk people down from the why me's?
Yeah, if I try to allow people to be where they're at. And so, if we might sort of explore, like, okay, if there's a lot of people who, just in general, right, not just with grief, but just in general, might ask why. Why is this happening? Why can't I feel, like this person that I know? And so we try not to get into the whys so much. We might sort of as we're exploring, but we might look more about the how. How do we get to where you want to be? How do we get from point A to point B? Because we don't always have to understand the why to be able to have change.
This is a tough one for me. I don't know why, but it is.
Okay.
I feel like I got to tiptoe a little bit because I don't want to alienate people or make people feel weird about counseling, because I think it's a really good thing, and I think, like I said, I think you're doing a really great thing. I guess, like, how soon or how long between like an event happening do you feel somebody should start talking about it right away to help with the grief? I'll say this.
Yeah.
I think we're far enough into the podcast where some people aren't going to be listening anyways. You know.
It's just me and you now, right?
Yeah, it's just me and you now. So there are some similarities between you and I in terms of, having to go through something that's tragic. When I was in the Air Force, I was married, and my wife was killed in a car accident. And it was like wildly like, what the fuck just happened? I mean, I was out in the field, so I couldn't get a hold of her, and I knew something was wrong, but I just didn't know what. And then the commander came out with the chaplain, and I knew right away it was for me. That something was, but I was young. I mean, I was barely 20. And there was like this, what am I going to do? I don't know. I'm all by myself out here, and I've got to take care of this thing. And I'm talking to a priest who's got like no idea how to talk to somebody like this. It's just all Bible and verses. And I'm like, okay, I got to call home. I got to tell everybody. I got to be the one that tells everybody. And kind of navigate that. Then 2 funerals, one at the base, one here at home. And I'm kind of lost in translation. Like, I'm getting word from the Air Force, like, hey, dude, you got to come back. Like, you don't have any time, And I'm like, but I don't want to come back. And so then I just, so in this kind of arc here for me was more, I just needed to go back to work. And, it was the military is very masculine. Right. So there's like not a whole lot that, the encouragement to go talk to the chaplain's one thing, but there was nobody really, and everybody was like, we're just not going to say anything about this elephant in the room situation. So just did my job, and when my time was done, I came home. And then that was just kind of like trying to figure it out. I'm living with buddies. I'm, partying on the weekends and just trying to figure what am I going to do? My whole plan was to go into the Air Force, do this thing for 20 years, and then maybe do something in the that translated from what I was doing there, which was basically just carrying a bunch of guns, to maybe being a police officer or something like that when I came back. And then when I came back, I tried. Super callous, I worked for the sheriff's department for a while, and that was just like, I can't do this. This is not for me anymore. And then kind of floated, and then slowly just kind of picked away at I got older. I just got older. And then it was basically in my 30s, my approaching mid-30s, is when it just, like I said, and met my bride, and it's been great. But, I thought about this part of me in preparation for you coming on because, Paul, you lost Paul and you were engaged to be married. And I'm like, well, there's two different things. I mean, his was like, I'm not comparing as the same thing, but it's someone that's so close to you, so emotionally tied to you, and then that happens. And I didn't talk to anybody. This is the most I've talked about it in almost 30 years. Pretty wild.
Right. And there doesn't have to be a comparison, right? Because we all experience, the majority of us probably experiences something traumatic. But it disappoints me, right, that wasn't encouraged. I know that's not going to be encouraged, right, when you're in the military, to like, hey, maybe you could talk to somebody about this, or, it's sort of like, nope, just go forward, just keep going. And I think that's where we sort of learn to compartmentalize, like, oh, okay, well, that happened. Well, I got to keep moving forward. So I just keep moving forward. And sometimes, if we haven't sort of healed from that, for instance, it'll show up in other ways. Like oh, that emotional piece, it'll come up in maybe ways that we don't expect it to or don't want it to. And maybe I don't know, in a relationship or just some situation, it might sort of creep in if we haven't, dealt with it. But sometimes if we're coping along the way, then it's not everybody has to have not everybody struggles with it, I guess.
Yeah. I don't even remember struggling. I know I did.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
But I don't really. That's the thing with in my caveman mind, it's like there was every day, and then it was once a week, and then it was once a month, and then now it's once a year.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that weird? I don't know.
Well, I don't think we have to judge it.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. And so, and that's what it's been like for you. And, my process is I feel stuff whenever it just comes up. It's like all of a sudden it's like a wave, when it's either, traumatic events or grief. So it's after, even after a decade, right? I still experience pretty heavy emotions. Not all the time, it's like I can function and I have, I can do this, but I make space for it when it's there. And I think that's the important piece, is that if you recognize it's there, make that space for it. Create, just a moment to be with it, because the emotion's already there. So it's like, oh, you can try to push it away, and sure, that'll work maybe for a moment.
Sure.
But it's not long term. And so I've just sort of learned to be open to whatever I may experience and experience it. And I think we can fight that a lot of times, and I do fight it sometimes still.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, this is coming, and I don't, like this is too hard. It's almost like something you tell yourself, right? No, this is too hard to feel. Well, if you just feel it, it'll be fine. But we have so many defenses that come up that nope, I'm scared to feel it. But if we just allow ourselves to surrender to it, it makes that process a lot smoother.
So you would use that in your couples counseling as well, with maybe couples that can't talk about how they're feeling to each other, which is probably the root of, aside from maybe he gambles too much or she drinks too much or whatever. It's more of you're not communicating.
Right. Yeah. Communication is big with couples or families.
Yeah, I think a lot of times to avoid an argument, people don't talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very common, probably for most of us.
Right. Yeah.
Is
like,
that,
I'm good.
Right.
I don't
want to go through that. Right. Yeah.
Well, shit, John. We just got deep there for a hot second.
Yeah. I'm used to that, so it's okay.
I bet you are.
So I'm glad we can.
I bet you are. Yeah, not to bring it down at all, but yeah, that was just my personal experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah. Some people know, some people don't know. And I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
So it's always weird when somebody kind of the conversation gets to a point like that, and they're like, "Oh, I had no idea." So then there's like this awkward, like, "Yeah." So what are we having for dinner?
Yeah. They're probably like still there going, wanting to be compassionate towards you.
Yeah, which is an odd thing to have to deal with, but yeah.
What, other people's compassion?
Yeah.
Okay. You're not used to that.
You put me on the couch. No, I mean, yeah, so it's uncomfortable, right? Like just bringing it up is uncomfortable. It took me an hour. But, for this podcast, you should know that there's layers to the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about the things that I'm seeing, have been through or whatever, and your experiences and how it works. But yeah, then you get to a point where it's like, all right, I don't need all the feels, and because that's the part that gets uncomfortable. Like one of my best friends, not that long ago, I can't even remember how we were just having a couple of beers, eating at one of the restaurants here, and it just kind of came out. And he was like, "Jesus, dude, I didn't even know you were married before,"
Yeah.
And I'm like, my best friend.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've only been friends now for maybe 6 or 7 years. So, you know, he's friends with me today, not the guy that was 20 years old. You know, so
Yeah.
that kind of shit just doesn't. You just don't lead with that.
Sure.
Hey, we're gonna be friends, by the way.
Yeah, let me tell you all of this.
Yeah.
What's happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Not my style.
Right.
But yeah. So then there was like an awkward moment. I'm like, we can move on from this. Now you know. You know. But in any event, I think that's a good place to stop.
Okay.
This was awesome, and I think a lot of people are going to get something cool out of this, and maybe people will call you. I'll put your website and your contact information in the show notes, so people can find you right away, schedule an appointment if they need to, send you a text message or an email, and yeah, it was great. Thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you.
really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. I appreciate it.
Good deal.